the $1 million question, or maybe $40 trillion question is the national debt an issue? I actually just saw a article talking about how our debt has surpassed $39 trillion now, and it's actually up more than $2 trillion in 8 months. So we're talking about an extra $1 trillion every 4 months. Is that a problem? In my opinion, I think it's a massive issue. So I'll tell you why. Number one, I previously discussed how we're in a tough situation if oil prices continue to rise, and the Fed can't bring down interest rates, which is stated intention, because if it does bring down interest rates, then it's going to cause inflation it's going to basically pour fuel on the fire in terms of increasing inflation. So they're going to have to keep interest rates higher to try to make sure inflation doesn't skyrocket. So now, what does that mean? That means we're going to have to pay more on the debt. If we have to pay, the only way that this debt is sustainable is if we pay lower, as if interest rates are low, right? If you're paying only like 3% on a massive number, it's significant. But when you're talking about $39 trillion of debt, if interest rates were to go up by 1%, that means just the interest payments now are, we're talking about $390 billion. $390 billion are just the interest payments. So for however much the interest rate goes up, that's an extra $390 billion we're talking about. So it's not really a sustainable situation, and something really has to be done. So, the issue could also become a sort of hyperinflation situation. And what happens if less countries start using the US dollar too? That's going to become even more problematic. So we may actually have to switch out our currency to something else, because I think that I just think that in a situation, I just don't see how it's possible unless we just basically ignore and say that the debt doesn't matter and we're just going to let it accumulate. But the problem with that is you can't just do that forever, because eventually investors aren't stupid either, whether they're institutional investors or if they're international investors. We really depend on international investors to buy our debt. Unless we're just going to mandate our own institutions to do that, but even then that wouldn't really be enough to cover it. So, and they may just demand saying, look, if you're $39 trillion in debt and you're not going to have austerity measures, which means that you're not going to cut spending, what's going to happen is we refuse to lend you any more money, right? That can happen with individuals. That can happen with governments as well. So I do think it's a major concern that needs addressing, and I just don't know if there's a way out of the situation unless we have severe austerity measures. And so if we bring down interest rates, it's going to cause inflation to go nuts. If we bring up interest rates, can't afford to pay the debt. So what are we going to do? So think that's kind of worrisome. Definitely something interesting to monitor. Please like and subscribe, and hope you enjoy your day.